Most people who regret buying on the North Carolina coast didn't make a bad decision. They just didn't look at the right things before they purchased. And every one of those mistakes is avoidable if you know what to look for before you commit. Let's dive in. The first step is very simple, but most people skip it. You don't start with the house. You start with how you live. Before you look at a single listing, you need to have an honest conversation with yourself about the shape of your daily life. How often will you need to go on and off the island? Do you want activities and amenities around you? Or are you specifically looking for something quieter and more removed? How important is quick access to groceries, healthcare, and basic services? Do you have kids or aging parents who might visit or need proximity? Are you working remotely? And if so, what does your backup plan look like if connectivity goes down during a storm? So before you open Zillow or Realtor.com, open a notebook. Answer the operational questions first. Know what your daily life actually requires. Then go looking for the property that supports it. Once you know how you live, the next step is to lock in the location. Not the house, its location. Happy buyers almost always decide on the area first, the town, the access pattern, the community type. And they hold that decision firm, even when a compelling property shows up in the wrong location. That discipline is hard to maintain in the moment, but location is the one variable you cannot change after closing. You can renovate a kitchen, you can update bathrooms, replace flooring, add a deck, reconfigure the layout even. But you cannot change where the house sits. You cannot fix access. You cannot change the surrounding density or the seasonal character of a neighborhood or how a community functions once the summer season winds down. There's a version of coastal ownership that people picture when they're making the decision to make a purchase. And then there's the version they actually live with. Getting clear on that gap between those two things before you buy is one of the more valuable pieces of work you can do to ensure a satisfying buy. That's because salt, air, wind, and humidity are not background conditions here. They're active forces working on your property every single day. Everything ages faster on the coast than it does inland. Exterior finishes, roofing materials, HVAC systems, window seals, wood decking, metal fasteners, and so on. The maintenance calendar never really empties. That's not a complaint about coastal living. It's just the honest operational reality of it. And it has a real cost in both money and time. Buyers who come in expecting that find it manageable and find that their purchase is more enjoyable. At this point, most buyers realize there are more moving parts in this decision than they expected. As someone who moved here in 2016 and helps people relocate to Emerald Isle every day, I put together a guide that walks through how this actually works, what to look for, what to verify, and where people tend to get caught off guard. If you want that, just text the word guide to 919-308-2292 and I'll send it to you. Now let's continue. Happy buyers understand that the North Carolina coast is not a uniform product. Different stretches of shoreline behave very differently over time. Orientation matters, proximity to inlets matter, and both affect the behavior of the shoreline in ways that aren't always visible in a listing photo or a casual site visit. How a stretch of shoreline has been managed or left unmanaged matters. Two homes that look essentially identical today, similar age, condition, price, and proximity to water, can have very different trajectories over the next 10 or 20 years, depending on where they sit and what's been happening to the land around them. You don't need to become a coastal geologist, but you do need someone in your corner who knows this dynamic coastline specifically. Almost everyone who buys on this coast plans for July. Very few plan for January, and January is in many ways the more honest picture of year-round life how year-round life actually looks like here. The off-season on bogue banks and along stretches of the Crystal Coast is genuinely quiet. Some restaurants close entirely between seasons. Others run reduced hours. The summer traffic that felt like a feature is gone. What replaces it is a different version of the place. Slower, more local, more residential. For some buyers, that process is exactly what they want. For others, the quietness eventually frustrates them endlessly. The practical test I give people is straightforward. Picture a Tuesday in February, no special plans. What does your day look like? Does that version of this place still work for you? If the answer is yes, you're probably calibrated correctly. If the answer gives you pause, that pause deserves your attention before you close on any property. The last piece of advice is the one that ties everything together, and it's the simplest to state. Verify the things that matter, rather than assuming them. Flood zone designations, the actual cost of wind and flood insurance at your specific elevation and location, HOA structure, dues, restrictions, and reserve health. Rental restrictions if rental income is part of your financial model. What the area looks like and how it functions outside peak season. The erosion history of the shoreline your property sits on. What's happening to comparable properties in the area over the last 10 to 15 years. Bottom line, make your due diligence list before you fall in love with a property and work through it regardless of how compelling the property turns out to be. The properties that hold up over time can withstand tough scrutiny. They'll still be good after you've done the work. The ones that can't, better to find out before closing day. And now for my Dennis fit test. You're likely to make a purchase you're happy with if you've done the work in the right order. If you started with how you live, not with how a property looks. If you locked in the location before you let yourself fall in love of a house. If you ran the real insurance numbers and looked at the maintenance picture honestly. If you asked the February question and gave yourself an honest answer. If you verified the things that mattered rather than assuming them. You're at a higher risk of regret if you're working primarily from how a property feels in the moment, on a beautiful afternoon in peak season, when everything looks right. That feeling is real data, but it is incomplete data. A purchase made on that feeling alone, without the operational questions answered, is a purchase that will surprise you somewhere downstream. The surprises are almost always avoidable. They just require you to look for them before you're in contract, not after. If you found this helpful and you're thinking about buying or living anywhere on the North Carolina coast, I have a free resource for you. Text the word FREE to 919-308-2292, and I'll send you a copy of my book, The Outer Banks Beach Home Buyer Guide. It walks through the realities of coastal living so you can decide if this lifestyle really fits you before you move. When you subscribe to this channel, you are joining a small but growing number of people who value clarity over hype and who help shape what I cover next. You can also check out this next video on oceanfront versus soundfront living in Emerald Isle, because that decision alone can be a very big source of joy. I'll see you there.